Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Only Stupid Answers. This is the show where we answer your questions about movies, TV shows, comic books, and Dunes. With me, as always, is Roxy Stryer. How are you doing, Roxy?
Not at all frustrated.
Good.
And really happy with all technology. Thank you for asking, DJ.
Well, it's good. It's only the whole thing our entire business model is based around, so no reason to get frustrated. With us today, we have an incredible special guest, Mr. Adam Hlavac. How are you doing, man?
My technical difficulties are not difficult. They're just sometimes a pain in the butt.
Yep. Always fun. Always fun. And I, of course, am your host, DJ Wooldridge. And if you couldn't guess from my subtle hint at the beginning, today we are talking about Denis Villeneuve's adaptation of Frank Herbert's Dune Part 2. But we're talking about a bunch of other stuff as well. But before we get into any of that, Adam, you've been on the show before, but for those that maybe missed those episodes or are not familiar, who are you? Where can they find you? What are you up to?
I'm a little internet nobody. I just happen to be on a really fun channel with two of my really good friends. We talk about superhero stuff. We talk about how you should support physical media because it's a problem.
Yeah.
It's not a problem. It's the best problem to have. And we do reactions to trailers, movies, and TV shows. I know one of the things that we're going to be talking about today, we're going to be doing a reaction of as well, especially, which is fun because I'm actually pretty unfamiliar with that property. So yeah, and then I'm on the internet, just Adam Hlavac at my name. If you have questions about Blu-ray, physical media, anything, I'm willing to answer them. Just ask nicely.
All right. Well, I've got a nice question for you, good sir. Obviously, you have quite a robust collection behind you. All Blu-ray, 4K, any DVDs sneaking in there?
It's 3D, 4K, Blu-ray, and then DVDs are kind of at the bottom in the corner.
I love hanging out with like you and Hector because you guys are so organized, but in different things. There's different things you're like, okay, this is what I'm focusing on. So at some points, I imagine you've run out of shelf space and you've needed to offload. Like time to move on from stuff. Where do you do that?
Well, I'm actually in the process of doing it right now. I have about 5 stacks on the floor of things that I'm going to be selling. And I just actually tweeted about this today. And I was like, part of being a responsible physical media collector is to literally look at a title. Because I was trying to make space for something. And I looked at what was around it. And I grabbed one thing. It was Space Jam Legacy. And I was like, will I watch this in the next 2 to 5 years?
Yeah.
No. Sell pile. So,
do you watch most of your stuff within 2 to 5 years? Like you just repeat?
Yeah. So usually if I get something new, sometimes I'll get stuff early. So I'll watch it. I'll try to watch it within the first 3 days. And then my girlfriend has not seen a ton of the stuff that I own. So I love introducing her to movies. We just watched A Clockwork Orange. So yeah, I tend to
fun watch.
Yeah. Yeah. She was like, I want to watch something because we had been watching like Memento and Prisoners and all these like kind of heavy movies.
Yeah.
And she was like, I really like to try to watch something that's light and easy. So she came in here and she came back with A Clockwork Orange, and I was like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, sure, if you think that's what you want, I guess.
She loved it, but
her? You need to give her a heads up.
Yeah.
Well, she already had like some pop culture understanding of the movie, and I was like, "You want to watch this?" And she was like, "Well, yeah, because from what I know, it's a very easy plot to follow." And I'm like, "Oh, all right."
I mean, I guess under that criteria, yes, that is correct.
Yeah, it's not like Memento where you have to be like, "What's happening?" Okay, so this, and we're black and white, and we're color again. So yeah.
Roxy, what's your Blu-ray collection look like?
I actually have an answer to that with something exciting. I think I own 3 Blu-rays, and I have a Blu-ray player, which is essential for owning Blu-rays. But did you see that Crust is getting a theatrical release and then is coming out in physical media?
That's amazing.
They announced that this week. So I'm really excited because you'll be able to, Adam, you physical types are going to be able to buy it, which is so cool.
That's
awesome.
In their collection, they'll be able to have a movie that of it, which is
there you go.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's part of that. I love that. I think I have like 6 or 7 titles in my collection that friends have made. And I love that.
Cool.
I love that. Cool. That's so awesome. Yeah. So
I have Crazy Stupid Love. I have the Sex and the City movie, and I I have The King's Speech, and those are the 3. And they've all been gifted to me. And Crazy Stupid Love got stuck in my Blu-ray player for 4 years.
Yeah.
So
Oh
that
my
was the
God.
only Blu-ray that I watched for 4 years.
Yeah.
I've seen that movie a lot of times.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I'm excited for my Blu-ray collection, and Adam's going to love this, that I saw, I believe it's an Australian outfit, Umbrella Entertainment. It released a remastered
I'm gonna kill
4K
you. Don't you dare.
of Super Mario Brothers.
son of a
And
bitch.
I'm excited to get my hands on that because back when the Universal animated Mario Brothers came out, I was like, I want to rewatch the one that was around when I was a kid. And all I could get was a like $5 DVD that was in the classic like 4x4 TV format. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
all right, I guess this, because it wasn't streaming anywhere, it wasn't anything, which is why people like Adam collect those physical media for situations like that, where somebody somewhere has decided, guess what, you no longer have access to this.
Yeah.
I want
Yep.
the Ali G show,
Yeah.
and I want Lindsay, the show that played on OWN. Adam, hunt them down for me. Talk to your physical media people. They stream nowhere.
Yeah.
It's so annoying.
You can get the Ollie G show, the complete first season, on DVD.
What am I supposed to do with one season?
Yeah. How many seasons was it?
I feel like it.
Maybe just the one. Just the one.
No, because I do
Yeah.
see a season 2 on here as well.
Yeah. Yeah, but
Okay.
it's
So it's out there.
I'm not sure, but it's streaming nowhere.
I feel
Yeah,
like, and this is
you
not
get
the
the
episode.
DVD.
This is not the episode to dive into it, but I do feel like there is this. We're culturally we're dealing with the fallout from the promise of the internet era, where in this specific example is like where you in the streaming era you will have access to everything,
Yeah.
and then it's like actually never mind, never mind.
This is how excessive I am in my collection. I have film reels too.
I love
This
it.
is from Tenet.
If that's crazy. If
But what does that do for you?
Well, they gave them out the theater, so they're collector. So my plan is that I want to frame them, and usually I'll get the poster and I'll frame it at the bottom.
love it, that's great.
Yeah.
If there's anybody in my life that will get their
Roxy's
hands,
like, I'm not into this.
Yeah.
It's too much.
It sounds very expensive and time consuming.
Not really.
hobbies.
Framing things cost so much money.
Yeah.
That's a big framing.
You're like,
Yeah.
red flag. Nope.
Red flag. Yeah,
no,
but
not red flag. Just that's red
Red
kind of a
financial
green
flag.
yeah.
No, that's a green financial flag. That means you got the kashish.
But yeah, also if there's anybody in my life that will get their hands on Acme or Coyote versus Acme, it'll either be Adam or Hector. Somehow they will have. Don't worry. I got the bootleg. They said they deleted it, but I got it right here. They'll be the ones, and we'll have a screening, and we'll all have a blast, and also a little bit of a cry after.
Seriously. I have asked around.
Dude, I'm glad. Please ask around. So now, listen. Before we get into Dunes, let's talk about some news. Over on. Oh wait, a little bit of business. I'm getting ahead of myself. As always, if you want to watch this show early, ad-free, check out our Patreon exclusive shows like What We're Into or Spider-Versity. You can do that over at patreon.com/onlystupid-answers. If you listen to the show on Spotify every week, we ask a question. Last week's question was, who is your favorite Avatar: The Last Airbender character? Bookworm answered Toph and Zuko. Adam, have you watched either the original animated Avatar or the new live-action Avatar?
I have watched the original animated one.
Do you have a favorite character?
Uncle Iroh.
Ira was great. Ira was a real winner.
It's so interesting that you guys all are obsessed with Iroh.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's kind of like in some ways he's kind of like the Ben Kenobi Yoda of the show, and I think I'm just naturally sort of attracted to those types of characters, very wise characters, who love to watch other characters sort of have a panic attack and freak out, and they're like, "It's gonna be fine, just chill."
Yeah.
I liked him too, but it seems like he's the universal favorite.
Yeah. Well, and the difference is, your main association with him is the live action show, and there's many.
I finished it, by the way, DJ.
What'd you think?
It was okay.
Oh yeah, yeah. And so from what I saw of the show, Iroh in the animated series, there's a lot of different layers to Iroh. Iroh in the live action show, they chose like, hey, the goofy fun uncle. That's like the lane they chose, and there's not a lot of the same.
But he's a good actor, DJ.
He's great. He's great, and I've heard he's lovely. So I think it's just different show decisions that were made behind the scenes. But speaking of casting, in our news, we got an announcement this week that Wendell Pierce will be playing Perry White in the new, formerly known as Superman Legacy, now just Superman. And Adam, I was on your show a week ago.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago now.
Time's relative. And we were talking about this prior to the casting about who would make a good Perry White. How do you feel about Wendle Piers, Bunk himself from The Wire, being cast as Perry White?
Yeah, so admittedly, like I have seen some of Wendell Pierce's movies and I've seen episodes of The Wire, but I have not watched the whole entire show all the way through. And I know he's been in like a ton of television in the last like 30 years. So I definitely think that the DC universe, unless I go back and like rewatch a lot of stuff, will be my primary exposure to him. But from the very limited things that I've seen, he has a really great voice, and I'm like, that's kind of perfect for Perry White. And I loved Lawrence Fishburne, and he also has one of those very sort of assertive voices, and I think you need that for that kind of a character. Yeah. So I have been predominantly very excited about all the casting so far in Superman, and I'm just looking forward to the movie as well. So I have a lot of faith in the project and in James Gunn.
Roxy, you said predominantly excited. Is there one that you're not stoked about?
I'm trying to think. Well, so I love Nicholas Hoult, and that guy has like done anything and everything he can to audition for every superhero in the DC universe. I feel like him being Lex Luthor, I have a lot of. I think once I see a trailer, I'll be convinced that he is going to be a great Lex Luthor. I don't think he won't be great. I think he has the potential to be great. But when I think of people like Clancy Brown, who did the voice on the animated series, and Michael Rosenbaum, I don't see Nicholas Hoult necessarily as that type of character. He does, in my mind, feel a little bit more like the Gene Hackman, but definitely less comedic. Definitely not Jesse Eisenberg, which I think went like too far. But so I'm willing to be convinced. And, I don't know anything about the main actor playing Superman either. But again, I have a lot of faith in James Gunn. I've only seen David Corenswet in, what did we see?
Pearl.
DJ? Pearl.
Yeah.
And he's not in a big chunk of the movie. He was good.
Yeah.
But when you're playing Superman, as has always been the case, there's a lot of sort of expectations and stuff. So I would say, like, generally speaking, I'm excited for all the cast. There's just like little characters and little actors that I'm like, that's an interesting choice for that type of character, but I'm sure it'll be great.
Roxy, what about you? What are your thoughts on Wendell Pierce cast as Perry White?
I think it makes a lot of sense. I think he's really great. I've seen him in a million things because he primarily does a lot of television. So like Ray Donovan, which I loved. Of course, you guys mentioned The Wire. He was on the show Accused that I watched. But I think more importantly than the ones that I've watched, this is a guy who has 175 credits on IMDb, which I think is really relevant and important because with the rest, there's a lot of Superman casting that we've done that where people are extremely green. I've done one or two or a handful of movies, including people that we love, like or the casting that we love, like a David Corenswet or the girl who's playing Hawkgirl, or even the girl who's playing Supergirl, where they just haven't been around for as long, obviously, and they don't have as many credits. Some of them have 1 credit, 2 credits, 3 credits. Even Rachel Brosnahan, who led her own show entirely. It's not like she's been at this for 45 years. So we are, and that makes perfect sense because it's a young cast for the most part. But when you do have a lot of new blood on set, I think that sometimes what happens is that you kind of set your own rules and have your own behavior. And like when you have vets in the industry to show you the way, people who obviously are liked, because you don't book 175 projects without being at least decent or at least a little bit liked, to kind of like help on set and set the tone and show what is good behaviors, what maybe is not. I just think it's always good when you bring somebody in who's a vet like he is, and he's a really talented person. So for just kind of win-win, so that we get some of that old school blood in there.
1000% for me. I'm a big fan of The Wire. I'm a big fan of Bunk. I think he's great, and I think he's a great casting as Perry White, because as we talked about on Heroes Reforged or on your guys' podcast, you need some. Perry's not JJ. and so you J. Jonah Jameson. So you need somebody that has a little bit more heart, has the sternness to be the leader of the Daily Planet, but has the heart to support his team. And I think Wendell Pierce can do both of those. When you bring up Lawrence Fishburne, it is tough to compete with that because he's one of the goats. And I could even argue maybe a little wasted as Perry White in those movies, just because of how great he is. But Wendell Pierce is awesome, and the second I saw them, I'm like, yeah, nailed it. That's it. That is the right answer. Good job. And it's very interestingly, in a weird bit of, I think, brand symmetry, I would imagine tonally from his other performances, not too different than what they're doing in the animated series My Adventures with Superman. That Perry feels in line with this.
I haven't had a chance to watch that yet, but I've heard nothing but good things about it.
It's so good.
DJ put it in his top 10 of the year last year.
It's so. As a Superman fan, it's like, yeah, you guys get it.
Yeah.
This is it.
And we've been wanting to watch it. I've been holding off because we're going to do reaction to it. So I'm like, when are we getting to this? Ooh. Please, God, I want to watch this.
Very excited to hear your thoughts. And surprisingly, pairing anime tropes and like that kind of structure to Superman works it works better than I think I would have anticipated going in. But once you think about it, like, yeah, of course it does. Dragon Ball has been around forever. Of course this, it works. But yeah, Wendell Pierce is great. The other bit I want to talk about is yesterday we got a trailer for the new Fallout show from Amazon and Jonathan Nolan, who created the Westworld show. You guys watched it literally before we went on the air. Roxy, I want to start with you, gamer, because you're the expert gamer in our crew.
Thank you for remembering.
Yes. Thoughts on the Fallout trailer?
I forgot that I put this on my list of shows that I needed to watch this year. I create a list before every year starts, just so I don't miss anything, because you know how much TV I watch. And then I forgot this was coming, and I know this is a game because obviously I'm a gamer. But I'm too advanced of a gamer to have ever played Fallout, so I didn't play this one because I'm, like S tier gamer.
Yes.
But I know nothing about this, although I had heard somebody kind of liken it to The Last of Us. So I was like, oh, okay, like it's an apocalypse kind of show. Then when I just watched the trailer, and it's not that there's not monsters in The Last of Us, but they're kind of grounded monsters.
Yeah, the tone, they're not wrong in that Fallout is also an apocalypse show. The tone is wildly different than Last of Us.
Yeah, like this seemed super quirky.
Yes, that is correct.
I was not expecting based on the very little that I've heard.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool because while I am obsessed with The Last of Us, I love that show. I think that it is great. And I love The Walking Dead. I haven't watched the Rick and Michonne show yet because it's only on Plus, which I have to figure whatever. Yeah. So frustrating. But been there, done that. And so I could use a little pizzazz in my apocalypse shows. And I thought that this trailer was cool. Like, as somebody who doesn't know anything about this world and is on the fence, like, okay, I want to make sure I watch it if it's good, but whatever, this trailer pushed me more towards you should watch this.
Very cool. Adam, what's your history with Fallout? Have you played the Fallout games?
Absolutely not.
Okay. So
he's too advanced too, DJ.
Yeah. So you guys are both too
I'm
advanced.
beyond S tier.
I'm S infinity tier.
I'm S plus tier.
What did you think of
plus?
What?
SJ plus?
Yeah, there you go.
DJ and I are having flashbacks.
Oh no. What did you think of the trailer?
I think the show looks great. I mean, just on a quality level, and it is Jonathan Nolan, so he comes from that family of perfectionists. But it looks really, really good. I was also kind of surprised at the quirkiness of the show, but I have had friends who have played Fallout, and I've kind of been near them as they played the game, and I get a little bit of that sense from the game as well, but then it'll kind of sometimes I feel like it takes a turn and it gets very serious, and I don't want to say dark, definitely not, at least in my opinion, to the level of The Last of Us, but it definitely gets serious at certain points. But I'm kind of a sucker for these post-apocalyptic stories and society being, either hidden or underground or whatever, and then coming back up to the surface to kind of see what's gone on in the 100 so, because I think this is like a 200, 300 year gap, right?
Yeah.
Where people have been underground and then they come back up.
Basically, the setting of Fallout is kind of the futuristic view of the world from the 50s, like that kind of like if you've ever been on Carousel of Tomorrow or whatever at Disneyland or been to Epcot, that idea, the idea the 50s had of the future. What if that panned out and then nuclear war happened and then then was all wiped out?
Yeah, I think we're kind of a crazy concept to think about.
I think it's not wiped out.
Pretty much everything. So what this, I think the trailer kind of sets up the world pretty well, where almost every game, I think every game, you start as a vault dweller, which was a bunch of people went to these vaults to survive the nuclear apocalypse, and they've been in there, I think, roughly about 100 years, depending on what game you're playing. And then you leave. It's either something, depending on the game, either something bad happens on the vault and you're forced to leave, or they send somebody out as a scout and that's you and you go out there. And then so there's pockets of that people, no specific group of people survived. Culture as we know was pretty much wiped out. But you've got people like, we see Walton Goggins, who I have this image of here, who is a ghoul. Which is functionally in this world somebody so irradiated they're a zombie and they live forever, and some of them become feral, becoming the zombies we're typically used to in zombie fiction, but some of them retain their intelligence, like it appears Walton Goggins does in this.
So he's a zombie.
Yeah, a ghoul. Let's get the terminology correct. It's a ghoul. Then you've got super mutants.
Why do some of them maintain their intelligence?
I think it's about. It just depends on how radiated they are and how it's affected their brain.
Proximity.
Yeah, and because and game rules, it's because you need people to shoot. But sometimes they're your friends.
DJ.
Some of them, the ones that aren't feral, speak. And you've got super mutants, and we see a little bit of the Brotherhood of Steel in this, which are the guys in the big chunky armor, which are some of the enclaves of society that remained. And you'll be shocked to learn that they lean a little fascist. And I think so. On top of the quirky tone, on top of the gallows humor, I love the part where there's that like lady shopkeeper who's like, "Oh, you're a vault dweller. We thought you all died." Yeah. The line that I think really gets to the heart of when you talk about some of the deeper stuff in Fallout is when the main girl's talking to a Brotherhood of Steel, and he's like, everybody wants to save the world. We just disagree on what that looks like. It's like, yeah, that's Fallout, man. Like, you get out there and everybody has their solution to saving the world, and it usually involves the brutal destruction of a bunch of other people, and you have to like navigate that world. But I thought the tone was perfect. I as somebody that loves these games, really enjoys playing them, it really captured the spirit of them. My only issue with it was it captures the tone so well. I'm like, I want to play this. I don't want to watch the. I am excited to watch the show. I will watch the show. I think it'll be really good. But I can't help that feeling like, I wish this was Fallout 5. I want to play this game. And the only other thing that I would request, if I could put something out in the universe, is almost every Fallout game, except I think 4, begins with Ron Perlman narrating the opening sequence, and it always starts with the line, war never changes. And if we've got all this Amazon money, I really need Ron Perlman to say those lines at the beginning of the show, and then I'll be like, I'm in safe hands. I'm in the Fallout world. We're good to go. But I'm very excited. And I'm excited that you guys are excited, even though you guys are too advanced of gamers to have played Fallout.
I feel like Ron Perlman definitely would do that. I mean, with his Mr. and Mrs. Smith appearance, and we know he doesn't like being recast.
Yeah.
Hellboy.
Yeah.
So I feel like he'd be like, "This is mine."
I'm worried Jonathan Nolan would be like, "No, that's the games thing. We need to do our own thing." I'm like, actually, but you don't though. I actually kind of wish you would just start. I have a feeling what I think will probably happen is it looks like, watching the trailer, Walton Goggins is an actor that ends up becoming irradiated in a ghoul, and so a century later he's like this sheriff outlaw character. And so I have a feeling that line will be in the show, but it'll be Walton Goggins delivering it, and I will accept that because I love Walton Goggins dearly. But the game fan of me will be like, but Ron Perlman, I don't care if he's not. I don't even need him in the show. I just need him to do that opening narration. I need it.
Yeah, I could be wrong, but I think aren't the Nolans working very closely with everyone who kind of worked on the game as well?
My understanding is the way they're pitching it, because each game takes place I think Fallout 4 took place in Roxy's hometown of Boston. I think 3 took place in DC. I do think one of the games took place in LA, but that's where this one takes place. And so the way they've talked about it is this isn't, because each game is a different location, this is in the same continuity as the games. It's just we're picking a pocket that you're not playing in the games, and so I think
see.
that's my understanding too.
Is in the same continuity
As the games, yeah. It's just because we're in a different spot that we're not going to visit in the games. They kind of have free reign.
Yeah, because I was under the impression it was just like we're not that we're ignoring the games, but we're not a part of the gaming universe. It's like its own live action cinematic thing.
I mean, I think it'll be like back in the day with Star Wars Legends, where it's in continuity until it's not, until the main thing happens, and they're like, actually, it's not in continuity anymore. It's its own thing. Or like Agents of Shield, where it's like, no, it's totally in continuity, totally. And then by 5, you're like, no, it's not, no, not anymore.
At least we're learning that video games are adapted into television much better than movies.
Yeah.
Which took us like a minute to get as a society.
Yeah.
I'm not watching Halo right now, but I hear the second season has been superior to the first season. And people
cool.
are enjoying it. Obviously, big fan of The Last of Us. I think that this bodes well for this show doing well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And if it does, that kind of solidifies like, to me, these what's this called, DJ? I'm just quizzing you. Open world games,
open world RPG.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Just was quizzing you
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously I know all about open world. But I think that this is a strong format if you're going to adapt, because it gives you time to breathe and you don't have to jam pack it. And the movie thing just isn't working most of the time.
Yeah. And I think the other advantage Fallout has over other games is that while it has the story is strong and the universe is strong, and there's definitely a strong vibe and different aesthetic things that evoke Fallout, which the show captures. There's not one specific character or story, so you're not as beholden to. You don't have to adapt this one guy, and if you get that casting wrong, everybody's going to be mad at you. Each story is its own standalone story already. Just with you always end up dealing with the Brotherhood of Steel in some fashion. You're always dealing with super mutants, those things. So as long as you hit those things and get the tone right, you can kind of do whatever you want. And so that makes it easier. Whereas Last of Us had a trickier road in that, like, Joel and Ellie have a specific story and people have a specific view of those characters. And granted, the show did a great job, but it's just I would imagine it's a trickier thing to adapt than a Fallout. What were you going to say, Adam?
How do you guys feel about being? I don't know if Prime normally does this in my experience, which I don't watch a ton of Prime.
Yeah.
But I feel like most of the episodes are released on a weekly basis, and this is all episodes at once.
Mike Joyce mentioned the same thing in the chat. He said, "I thought it looks great, but I'm worried it all being released at once is a bad sign." I would agree, except Mr. and Mrs. Smith was released all at once, and that show was real good. What do you think, Roxy?
Torn. Mr. and Mrs. Smith is the kind of show you can run through. This doesn't seem like that to me.
Yeah.
This seems like
one episode and I need a break, maybe.
kind of. So I wouldn't be worried about it for that reason, but I don't know that they made the right choice. I think that truthfully, these streaming services are still trying to figure out what the best way for them is. And some shows end up being collateral damage on that because they need to do what's best for their pockets. And so many things are going into consideration for that. Like when they're dropping their next show, I haven't looked at Prime's schedule, but they don't like movies. They don't want to be competing with themselves. So it's possible that they have a fully loaded slate and they're like, okay, we have nothing this weekend. We want people to jam pack this because we want them prepared for this thing next weekend, which is a different model than we want things every week like television has been. Or they did whatever focus groups and they saw that when people were sitting down, they wanted to watch the first 4, but maybe they thought the 4th episode didn't have enough of a cliffhanger. So they were like, let's just put out 5. And then they were like, oh, if we're going to put out 5, let's put out the whole season. Like, there's a lot of different factors. So it doesn't make me think that the show is not good, but I don't know that it was the right choice.
Yeah, and you make a really good point, Roxy. Also, I wonder how much because watching Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I was really surprised that they dropped it all at once. But you bring up a good point in that they might be playing catch up because of the strikes. Like now we have a backed up slate, and so we don't really have the room to do one a week for whatever. That's my preferred watching format. What were you going to say, Adam?
I was going to say that's how I feel like is because of the delays. It seems like they are trying to play a little bit of catch up, and now they're looking exactly what Roxy was saying. they're looking at their slate and they're realizing, oh, there's going to be too much overlap if we don't drop this show all at once. I feel like Disney Plus does the same thing. They'll announce a whole slate of shows. They'll have like a Star Wars show in August, but then a Marvel show in October or September, and they realize, oh, wait a minute, these are now going to overlap, and we want to make sure we kind of spread it out a little bit. So they'll be like, well, we're going to do the first 3 episodes on the first night, which sometimes even that I'm kind of annoyed with. But yeah, I have obviously like no insight into whether or not it's going to make the experience of the show better or worse. But I do feel like whenever Stranger Things has done that, and it's been there, it's how they've done it since the beginning, the conversation around the show doesn't last as long, obviously, as it does with shows that are on a weekly basis, like Mandalorian or whatever the hell other show has come out on a weekly basis. I feel like the conversation on social media lasts much, much, much longer because you can kind of live in it longer.
Yeah.
So I'm curious how that's going to affect that.
Netflix is playing around with that too, speaking of Stranger Things, but like we've got, I think you guys have probably been hearing a little bit about Love is Blind. At least you guys at home are hearing about it because they did this bizarre thing this season, and they've done similar things in the past where it's like they dropped the first four episodes, or 6 episodes, and then they dropped 3 episodes, and then they dropped 1 episode, and then they dropped 1 episode for like a period of a month, and just kept changing it up based on like the portion of the show they were trying to show. I think, and Adam, you just said you were annoyed with this, so clearly it's different for every viewer. But for me, especially when it comes to prestige drama, I want 2 to 3 episodes, and then I want weekly. So I want to get hooked. I want enough to bite off essentially like almost a movie's worth. And then I want a weekly episode. And that is by far and away what works best for me to get me into a show. Because sometimes a pilot just isn't enough. And it's cool to be able to watch a second one to see like, okay, do I like the tone of this? That's what Shogun just did.
Yeah, they did like, 2 and then weekly.
Yeah, and the first episode of Shogun, honestly, I was like, that was good. The second episode, I was like, I am hooked, and they got me. So, and now I'm here weekly, and obviously DJ will talk about that and what we're into later on, because holy crap, Shogun's amazing. But I think that right now they're so concerned with their wallets that they're forgetting that they have to do something consistent for you to even know what that company does. Like it used to be Netflix drops all at once. So like you said, Adam, like that's what they've done from the beginning, but now that's not what they do. Now some of their shows drop at once. Some of them, like an Ozark, are 2 different parts. Stranger Things, 2 different parts. Some of them are 4 and then 3 and then 1 and then 1 and then 2. And it's like, I don't even know what your release schedule is, my dude. Like that's really bad. I'd rather just know.
I think part of the issue is now we've got tech companies running entertainment platforms, and so they don't know what they're doing. I'll tell you the one thing I am kind of pissy about with this being on Amazon is they now run ads before their Amazon shows, and the only part that frustrates me about that is the guy that runs the company makes more than the average American an hour. So fuck off. Fuck off with running ads before your thing. Don't fucking tell me you're not. Oh no, the strikes happened, so now we don't have enough money. Fuck off.
Okay,
don't even get me started on the cost of streaming services.
What are you gonna say, Roxy?
And Netflix is going up again, and like I just bought Netflix this year, so it worked on me. They did it. I got kicked off the household, and then I got the add-on for my sister. I am currently paying like $28 for Netflix.
And another thing, and to me this feels related. What's the guy that runs Netflix? Nick Sarandos or whatever?
Ted
Sarandos. Thank you.
Ted Sarandos.
I saw a clip from the Independent Spirit Awards. And it was a shot of Natalie Portman, but who's sitting right next to Natalie Portman because of May December is that guy. And I'm like, Independent Spirit, go fuck yourselves. go. The fucking.
This is one thing I will say though.
Yeah.
That I think is unique to him. I have like 10 friends that work at Netflix, and they all swear by Ted Sarandos, which is interesting because who knows what's going on there. But like they have company or whatever it is, and they say that they're treated unbelievably well. So it is one thing that helps me spend my money there, knowing that my friends that work there really like him and like working there, as opposed to my friends who have worked at Amazon who are on their last breath. Just like, this is so difficult. So I at least I'm like, okay, take my money, I guess, although that's going up too. But the thing I was going to say about Amazon, because if we're going to say about the ads at the beginning,
Yeah.
I feel you, DJ. I mean, it's so expensive too, because you can't do it without the Prime, whatever.
Yeah.
The way that they do it is crazy. But their integration of IMDb, I'm obsessed with.
Yeah, that's good.
That
That's good.
thing,
Yeah.
especially as an actress, I'm like, this is so cool, man. Like
Yeah.
all the time I want to know who's in the scene. And then you go to the IMDb and you can't figure it out, and per episode, and they haven't uploaded it, whatever. I love watching something and having the option to know immediately who is in that scene.
Yeah.
That I'm stoked on.
You're right. And I wouldn't be, because again, I want actors and directors and everybody to be paid. It's not about that. It's that I don't think Amazon is the one that needs to be tightening the fucking purse strings on that shit. Like, come on, man. Like, we all know you're infamous for how much money the guy at the top makes. Anyway, listen, speaking of, but here's my segue. Listen,
Speaking of Kyle MacLachlan in Fallout.
Yeah, the spice must, that was a better segue, but the spice must flow. So let's talk about Dune Part 2, directed by Denis Villeneuve and written by Denis Villeneuve and John Spates. Paul Atreides unites with Chani and the Fremen while seeking revenge against the conspirators who destroyed his family. Right now on Rotten Tomatoes, this movie has a 93% with an audience score of 95%. Visually thrilling and narratively epic, Dune Part 2 continues Denis Villeneuve's adaptation of the beloved sci-fi series in spectacular form. Adam, you are our guest for today. What did you think of Dune? Were you able to see it on the biggest screen possible? What do you think of Dune Part 2, Chapter 2? Dunes. I wish they called it Dunes.
Part Due. Dunes Part Due.
Dunes.
Well, it's worth mentioning that I had absolutely no context going into Dune at all. The first one.
Okay.
I never read it. All I knew about Dune was that George Lucas was inspired partially by Dune to do Star Wars. So I was like, oh, that's cool. Walking out of this movie, I was like, man, I don't think this will happen. But if someone in 50 years reboots the entire Star Wars universe, what these movies are doing, I'm like, this is really, really well done.
Yeah.
Like this story of this, how he's set up to be potentially this hero who will lead the Fremen and Arrakis and all these people into sort of like this paradise, and that absolutely not being the case is I think done in a really, really good way. I did go see this in IMAX 70 millimeter because I am that person who will go out of his way.
Yeah.
And it was an amazing experience. Like all the imagery, Greg Fraser, who's the DP, is in the top 5 best cinematographers working today. So, and
what
I
else
already
has he been the cinematographer for?
Rogue One, he did the Batman, he did I think Zero Dark 30. What else? What's the movie Killing Them Softly?
Ooh, I love that movie.
He was like a partial DP on The Creator. He did The Mandalorian I think just the first season. I don't think he did the second season. So he's been very busy in the last few years. But yeah, he's photographed some of my favorite films too.
Yeah,
and this is
a great list. Holy
yeah, like Denis Villeneuve was working with Roger Deakins before this.
Yes.
So an absolutely incredible team. But yeah, I really loved the movie. I thought the experience of watching it was really thrilling. And the story kind of surprised me with how much bigger it was, but also more intimate it was, especially with Paul's relationship with Chani and his mother even, and seeing kind of like where that relationship is potentially going to take that character. And they do introduce a lot of new things while also building upon what was established in the first movie. And I feel like when you're doing that, sometimes, not always, you can kind of run into the troubles of the movie diverting to too many things. But I thought this movie did in a really good way, and I thought that it utilized the runtime really well to sort of set up whatever it needed to, but also not set up or feel like it needed to regurgitate details from the first film for people who maybe didn't see it. It really just kind of like went for it and continued the story pretty well. And then I thought the finale was a really, really engaging finale and shot really well. And all, like I could go on and on about the visual effects in the movie too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I loved it. It was a really fun experience, and it really leaves the story in an interesting place. And I know Villeneuve has talked about how he really wanted to make sure that people understood, and some people still don't understand apparently, that Paul Atreides he's not the hero, he's the anti-hero.
Yeah.
And I know that Frank Herbert wrote Dune Messiah because so many people read the book and went like, oh, this is going to be the next greatest hero in literature. And he was like, no, you're not getting it. You're not understanding it. So I feel like the movie does a really good job of sort of kind of like nailing that that part of the story. So it leaves me very interested to find out what the hell were we going from here? Because from what little I know about Dune Messiah, it's a little bit different than what they do in the book. So yeah.
What about you, Roxy? Thoughts on Dune Part 2?
I, like Adam, didn't know anything going into Dune, the first one. When I walked out of Dune, I was blown away. I loved the first movie. I was just like, holy crap, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I couldn't take my eyes off the screen for a second. It was unbelievable to watch. I really liked Dune 2. I did. I really liked Dune 2. But it was really sad I thought that it was a very sad movie. So I actually liked the first Dune better because the first Dune felt kind of full of hope. And the second Dune felt really, really sad. DJ, lover of love, shipper of ships, Roxy Stryer. So obviously, and I think we're kind of in like spoiler-free territory right now.
Yeah.
I had a hard time with some of the choices in this movie. And it's beautifully done. I also think that Rebecca Ferguson and Javier Bardem are like just such stars. They're such stars that it was kind of wild to see Zendaya and Timothée Chalamet and Florence Pugh, who are the biggest star. Like those are the maybe three biggest stars of their generation.
Yeah. Totally.
Not to mention, I think people know who's in this, right?
Yeah.
In the brief moment.
Oh, yeah. Anya Taylor-Joy. Yeah.
Not to mention Anya Taylor-Joy. I mean, like, and homeboy.
Austin Butler.
Austin Butler.
Elvis.
Thank you. Yeah. And Austin Butler. I mean, those are five of the biggest names in this generation. And to me, it was kind of wild because Rebecca Ferguson and because Javier Bardem are so like mind-blowingly talented. I wanted to spend all of my time with the two of them.
Yeah.
And that is no knock on any one of the younger gen because I think that they're all ridiculously good.
Yeah.
But as Timothée Chalamet starts to become extremely annoying, Rebecca Ferguson's also like does things that should cause you to, but I'm never annoyed by her because I'm just engaged.
Yeah.
So that was kind of an interesting viewer experience where I'm like, the generation we're supposed to be following here, and maybe that's just because of my age when I watch Star Wars versus my age when I'm watching this, where I'm like attached to the oldies.
Yeah.
Not to call Javier Bardem and just like not that they're old, but just like that.
The adults in the room. Yeah.
The adults in the room. And I'm just like, oh, let's go back to Javier has jokes.
Yeah.
I like those jokes.
And even though Javier Bardem does not play my favorite character in the movie, because he's the true believer, but he does something really interesting there where he's simultaneously playing the true believer and also somebody that's playing the role of true believer. You can never quite tell, like, does he really believe this or does he understand that if I get everybody else to believe this, my chances of success increase.
Exactly.
And that's
exactly.
And same with Rebecca Ferguson, where it's like there's multiple, like Timothée Chalamet and Zendaya, they're in the throes of like, they're younger, so they believe everything to the strongest. Whereas Rebecca Ferguson and Javier Bardem, and I throw in, even though he doesn't get as much to do, I throw in Stellan Skarsgård, where it's like there's a couple extra layers to what we're doing. There's the thing we're doing, and then there's the thing we're thinking, and where those two things meet.
And Josh Brolin and Dave Bautista, and not to mention Christopher Walken, the older gen, and again, Rebecca Ferguson and Christopher Walken aren't part of the same generation, but the adults in the room, they had me by the throat.
Yeah.
And so that was different in this one than it was in the last one because I am such a lover of love, shipper of ships.
Yeah.
I was so invested in the first one,
Mm-hmm.
in love.
Mm-hmm.
And here, the movie ended, and I was like,
Yeah.
so good though, so good. But just a lot of people are referring to this as one movie, part A and part B.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you do think of this as one movie, I just like the first half of the movie better than the second half.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because, a lot of people have obviously brought up the conversation about Star Wars because there's so many layers. And I think a lot of people, myself included, you look at the first half of the movie and you're like, yeah, this feels like A New Hope.
Mm-hmm.
But then you look at the second half, you're like, yeah, this kind of feels like Empire Strikes Back, where it ends on a note and tone where you're like, the good guys might lose. They might lose. But so I'm curious if Dune Messiah is like the redeeming arc for the character or not.
This
There
reminded
are
me
certain
more.
things that
I
happen.
think not. I think not, Adam. I think not.
Yeah, I think definitely not.
Yeah.
Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
I also think this was more episode 1 and episode 2 than episode 4 and 5,
Yeah.
because we're looking at Anakin.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, he's definitely that character.
We're
Yeah.
not looking at Luke.
Yeah.
So it's like that's my interpretation, at least. And okay, kind of spoiler territory. Is that okay?
Yeah. I
DJ?
mean, the way it's over. Movie's been out for over a week, so I think we're good.
Okay. I feel like it's difficult because the movie's clearly not pro white savior.
Yeah.
But Timothée Chalamet's character, by the end, thinking he is this white savior, is so annoying to me.
Yeah.
Even though I understand that the movie is taking a stance against that, it's not like this movie is trying to say to us, like, and we agree, Timothy should come in and
Yeah.
Zendaya had it all wrong. Like, I know the movie isn't saying that. So it's not like I'm judging the movie, but I don't know how much that journey is a journey that I want to be part of. Like, watching him do it, I'm like, man, like,
Yeah.
because I was so invested in their love. And when he says, I will love you until my last breath.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next
And then
thing
turns
he does,
around.
and I'm just like, and that's great storytelling, obviously,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like that. But I'm just like, but I wanted to watch
Yeah.
her rule, him step down, and her and them be together.
Well-
and I wrote the story in my head of what I preferred, and that's not the story they're telling.
Maybe you should read the book, Roxy, where he ends up marrying the Florence Pugh character, but Zendaya stays around as his concubine, so it all works out.
Like,
And so it all works out. It's a happy ending in the book.
Yeah, and I think that I'm actually very happy that they did not go that route because I have very limited knowledge of the books, but from the little things that I read, I'm like, this kind of extra complicates what happens in Dune Messiah because now the characters are completely apart.
Yeah, and I think
so. How do you bring those characters together and still, in some ways, pay respect to what Dune Messiah, just on a very surface level from what I've read, does, and get it kind of back on track in some ways? Maybe they don't. Maybe goes in a completely different direction than the original text.
Yeah, I
which
think
is fine.
I think it's important, trying to complicate the white savior aspect of it. The movie, I was really feeling this. Like the movie needs a character that's part of the Fremen, and it ended up being one of the most prominent characters, which I think was good to be like, oh, well, time out, because even though the movie's not pro white savior, it's still, because we're following Paul, it still makes the Fremen look crazy gullible. Like, it's one of those, like, that's also not great, guys. It's kind of a problem that Killers of the Flower Moon runs into because we're following Leonardo DiCaprio. It makes all the indigenous people look like kind of fucking dipshits. Whereas I think if you chose a different angle to see how they would get suckered into this situation, because we're all capable of it. For me,
yeah, I feel you on that totally. I just watched that movie, and I think that's a great point, DJ.
Yeah.
It's like I can't help but judge these characters a little bit.
Yeah.
And you're right that the movie is not doing but it's so important that's why I love Javier Bardem's performance. Like, I don't know how much he actually believes.
Yeah.
Zendaya is such an important character because she's just like, this is wrong. Like, screw this.
Yeah.
How does it feel for you guys knowing that the Bene Gesserit have been around for almost 1,000 years, kind of planting that seed throughout the universe?
It's Interesting plot point. I will say around the middle section, around the 50th time, we're like, they're the ones pulling. It's like, I get it. That's so for me, I think
Good news. They're doing a whole show about it.
yeah,
too.
cool, great. I think Denis Villeneuve and his team are able to craft amazing images, like how they do laser guns, how they do jetpacks. Like every one of them feels like a new take. It feels fresh. Also, the ability to avoid what I would call the John Carter syndrome, where you're adapting material that came out before Star Wars, but Star Wars is so beholden to that you could run into the issue of merely adapting it feels like a Star Wars, like desert planet, sandworms, spice, like psychic powers. You know what I mean? So much is lifted from it, but the tone is so different. And also,
Absolutely.
I feel like there's a credit to Denis Villeneuve, but whoever was able to be like, there had to have been an exec. I can't imagine a reality where there was an exec in the room where like, hey, can we have like a quippy? Can we have a, like, can we make this more like Star Wars? And their ability to be like, fuck that.
No.
It feels so distinct.
Immediately no.
Yeah, its ability to feel so distinct is incredibly impressive. For me, though, my issue with this movie is the same issue I have with all of Denis Villeneuve's work, in that, or I tend to have with his work, in that the tone is so controlled and so modulated. And so I would almost say monotone, like nobody gets too excited. It just exists in this space. It creates a very specific experience, but it's not an experience I emotionally connect to the point where one of the issues people leveled at this movie, or Dune 1, was it just kind of stops. And weirdly, even though this is the completion of the book, it also feels like instead of building towards a climax where I feel engaged, it just kind of ends. It's like, it's done now. And then I realized that's the same feeling I have in Blade Runner 2049. And that's the same feeling Prisoners, like it just, it's because everything's so controlled. And I've had this conversation with a few people to really try and think about, and this is not a like, Dune is bad or Denis Villeneuve is bad. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I'm trying to articulate the reasons why I don't connect as much with it. And I think his nearest filmmaking ancestor is probably Christopher Nolan, which people level at him that his movies are kind of emotionally cold or analytic, which I think is true. But I think the thing Nolan does that I think is smart is he allows his actors to bring that emotion. He's not bringing the emotionality, but he allows his actors to the degree that in Inception, you care about Cobb's relationship with his wife is because of Leonardo DiCaprio and Marion Cotillard and their performance. When I watch Oppenheimer, which is a movie about science geeks, but the ending where he's talking to Einstein and he's like, maybe we did end the world. Cillian Murphy's performance and all that. I'm like, oh my God, like you feel that. And I never have that feeling in a Villeneuve movie. I don't, as incredible as the craft is, I have trouble emotionally engaging with it in any way, to the point where it feels like I'm at a museum looking at a piece of work behind glass. And it's something that's meant to be observed like this, like, look at those lines. Those lines are so precise. Everything's so precise. It's like, yes, it is precise. And the precision's great. But Timothy Chalamet and Zendaya aren't ending up together. I'm like, I guess I care. Like, I don't. And maybe part of that is like,
I care.
And I guess maybe also part of that is going back to the Bene Gesserit thing about like, I think the editor in me, it's like there's a lot of bloat. Like I love Dave Bautista. His character didn't need to be in the movie. It doesn't really contribute in any real way. As great as I think that actor is, I don't know why Jason Momoa was in the first movie. I don't really see, other than I get they were in the book. I understand that, but I feel like there's some bloat, there's some fat that can be cut here, because that's another thing as somebody that responds to Nolan's work. His movies book, man, they're always moving. Even if they're 3 hours long, we're running that entire 3 hours.
But you don't think Dave Bautista's character was necessary for Austin Butler's character?
Not really. I think it could have combined the two. I think you could combine Jason Momoa's character with Josh Brolin's character. I think as far as the narrative fulcrum, they serve the same function. And so I think you could have at least trimmed a half hour off of each of these movies. There's part of me that thinks, I do think you could get this down to a 3 hour single movie. And it might be, but again, and the criticism against that remark is that I was like, if you can get Fellowship into a movie, you can get this in a movie. I did look at the page counts of both, and Dune has double the page counts of Fellowship of the Ring. So maybe two movies was the right call. I just feel like for me, I probably would have needed to tighten it up, and I think you can either go with like, it's just the combination of things that I don't as great as the craft. Like you can tell the craft, and obviously the actors are some of the best, most famous in the world. All that stuff. I just have trouble. I appreciate it without connecting to it, and I wish I could. I wish I had the feeling other people's had of like, oh my god, this is so amazing. And it's like I appreciate it more than I connect to it.
Well, and this is what I love about these types of movies, because I feel like everyone has different emotional responses to films like that, because I feel like I'm in the total opposite end where Dune Part 2 ended and I went, fuck, I wish this movie was 45 minutes longer.
Wow.
And I know that a lot of it is kind of like, well, it all just depends on how and what sort of like things you've consumed throughout your life.
Yeah.
But I think that the thing that I really appreciate about, I would say, Denis Villeneuve, his movies in general, but particularly these two, I feel like it's made for you to just kind of sit there and live and absorb the entire world. And it's a nice contrast to what I feel like a lot of movies of that scope and scale, how a lot of them tend to be nowadays, where they're just constantly like moving and they're so fast paced that I'm like, let me just live with these characters for literally 5 minutes and let me just understand them better. So I think that's probably part of the reason why I love these movies so much, is there's so many moments where I just get to like sit and watch these characters just kind of experience what's happening around them and how it affects everybody. And then it still has the really fast cuts and the action scenes and all that I also really, really love and enjoy, and it's done so incredibly well. But I think I really just appreciate the fact that Villeneuve doesn't feel pressured to move to the next scene until it needs to move to the next scene. Even watching the first time, I felt like it was a 90-minute movie. Like it felt that fast in my head. But I get it. Like I think it's a very valid argument, especially with the tone, that it does kind of feel like it lives in a very tight boundary.
Well, and I will say
and
this,
he is just that kind of filmmaker. So yeah.
To that point, and I will say this, I do like that this movie feels authored. It is a specific vision from a team of people that wanted to make a specific type of movie, and it doesn't feel like a bunch of a board of execs, stamp this out in a factory.
Made by committee movie.
Yeah,
basically.
Exactly. And so even though I didn't feel like I connected, I do appreciate that. Like these are the type of movies we want more, a specific type of vision, even if it's not like what my favorite type of movie. I wish more blockbusters felt this specific.
I think that I totally hear what you're saying, DJ, about like being an observer at a museum. I had a much more interactive experience, and like Adam, the runtime felt very short to me. I was like, I could have lived in this even longer. I thought every character was necessary for the story that they were trying to tell. And I think that visually, obviously, this is just like truly brilliant. My only like qualms are with the story, and not because it's not good, just because
it broke your heart.
Yeah, just because it's upsetting. It's like when you watch a movie and you're just like, this is great, but man, the world is so tough right now. Can you just like hook it up for a second?
Can you throw me a bone? Well, let's go to some of our Discord questions. Jake Hefner asks, is Dune the best book to screen adaptation? With the rumor of Denis Villeneuve wanting to do Dune Messiah next, does Dune Part 2 make you excited or interested in any further adaptations of the Dune series? I will say the first part of that question, I don't know that none of us have read Dune, so I don't know that we can speak towards it being the best adaptation. I would say Lord of the Rings is still, it's up there at least, Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings movies, but does this movie, and I kind of get the sense from the two of you that I know how you're going to answer in different directions, but Adam, we'll start with you. Does this get you excited for a potential Dune Messiah adaptation? Which, for those that's book, these first two parts are book one. Yeah. Dune Messiah is book two, but it'll be the third one of these movies.
I'm absolutely excited. When I watch a lot of these books that have been adapted into movies, my whole thing is that I will not read the book until after the movie. Yeah. Sometimes the movies tend to be good enough that I'm like, I'll eventually get to the book. Yeah. I walked out of Dune Part 2 and I was like, I'm ordering the whole trilogy of books. No. So it's that good that I'm so hooked into the universe that I immediately want to read the books, and I immediately want to know what happens in Dune Messiah. It might be like the first time in my life I read the book before the movie comes out. So I'm incredibly excited to see what they're going to do. And I think it's part of it is because I know very little about the second book, but I know where this second movie ends. And it makes me so interested to find out what's in the book and what are you going to do differently and how is that going to work. So yeah, I cannot wait. I think he's going to do one thing before he does Dune Messiah, which fine. I love that he doesn't feel like he needs to answer to a release date. Thank God.
No.
Take your time with it, please. But I'm curious if he's also going to maybe decide maybe I need to split that into 2 movies as well, and he'll do a 2 and a 4 that is all Dune Messiah. I don't know, but yeah, I cannot wait.
I think that also in the books there's like a 10-year gap between Dune 1
12,
and Dune Messiah 12. So that probably also makes him feel like, yeah, I could take a little break. Roxy, what about you? I have a feeling you didn't love the way this ended. So do you want Dune Messiah?
Are you ready for more heartbreak?
First of all, book-wise, not even close for me.
Yeah.
Not even close. Wizard of Oz,
No.
Princess Bride, Schindler's List.
No.
There's so many brilliant adaptations where I liked this movie a lot, but it's not in my top 50 movies of all time.
Yeah.
So it's definitely not my favorite adaptation, even though I will watch this movie again for sure, but just not even close to best book adaptation for me. And then in terms of, what was the second question that you just asked me
But
again?
are you excited for Dune Messiah? Are you ready
Oh,
for
no, I'm stoked, honestly, because I'm going to put on my big girl pants now. We didn't enter Dune 2 with me having big girl pants on. Now I know.
No.
And I'm watching you, Timothy.
No.
Timothée.
Yeah. And I'm not Team Timothy.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah. Keep an eye out.
Yeah, so I'm excited for this. I mean, there's nothing that they can put out that I won't see. Say that Dune 3, Dune Messiah comes out and it gets, for some reason, bashed. I'm still going to see it.
Yeah.
Because they've earned my viewership at this point. I want to see what's happening next.
So you'll be watching the show too, I'm assuming.
I don't know.
Roxy, you're the TV. You go, come on, you are. Especially, listen. To Roxy's point, I thought Rebecca Ferguson and Javier Bardem were like, and I would put in Stellan Skarsgård were the standouts. If she's in the show, even though I like the concept of the Bene Gesserit that they've been orchestrating. It's just, by the 50th time somebody's like, see how they're scheming. It's like, I understand that they are. I get it. They are the ones behind this. I understand.
Well, the show takes place
100 times. I don't feel like they did that 100 times.
I don't feel like that either.
Yeah.
I think the thing that constantly gets repeated is the fact that like he is the Messiah.
Yeah.
He is the one who will lead us to paradise. But that's coming more from Stilgar, I feel like, than anyone.
Yeah, I have a short fuse when it comes to prophecy, chosen ones. Even if at the top they're like, this is all bullshit. I'm like, let's move on. Let's keep this train going. But again, I've said on other shows, I'm a big brevity is the soul of wit guy. If you can tighten things up. Like, anyway, off to just because we see them on the Dune doing their scheming and talking to Rebecca Ferguson, we see them talking to Florence Pugh, and we see them like doing the stuff with fucking Elvis, and like it's like I understand they've got wheels within wheels. It's the one reason why I couldn't get through. I didn't watch past season 1 of Westworld. I'm like, I understand, I get it. It's all a maze. I get it. Boiler Huff. Assuming Denis Villeneuve makes Dune Part 3 and then steps away as planned, would you be okay with another director taking over the series, or would you prefer to leave it as a trilogy? If the former, which director would you pick to take over?
Fuck.
That's
such a hard question.
I will say, talking to Dune book readers, apparently Mr. Frank Herbert started experimenting with the good old LSD between books, and things get wild. Like there's a man-worm god by the end of the series, so things get a little crazy. If you thought Psychic Fetus was a bit crazy,
there's 6 books, and I've heard the same thing. Most of the people who have like tweeted at me about the book and stuff about the books or Dune in general have said after Children of Dune, which is book 4, it gets kind of weird.
Yeah.
So yeah, like if they don't do all 6 books, that's totally fine. But picking someone to take up that mantle, that is hard. I think it needs to be someone who, obviously it's always preferable if they love the material.
Yeah.
Which, with Dune, I'm sure there's a ton of filmmakers out there who probably love it or at least appreciate it. But it also really does need someone who not only is willing to take the time to make the movie, the studio also has to be super trusting of them as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
And they can't be someone that they're going to constantly be like, giving notes and all these sorts of stuff. They need to just really trust the vision of the director. And I feel like that maybe will be hard when you're being asked to follow up what Denis Villeneuve has done. So I truthfully can't off the top of my head think of a filmmaker right now that I feel like.
Justice for Ryan Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, actually, you know what? Yeah, I will agree with you there. Yeah, Ryan Johnson.
Justice for Ryan Johnson.
I mean, with Ryan Johnson, maybe we can get one of those jokes. Like he can talk about putting somebody on hold. We can get that joke into Dune.
No, actually, yeah, I agree with you. Honestly, even like a Ryan Coogler, I think could handle a story of that scale and that scope, and would have the attention to detail to really craft something that is really clean and looks really good and sounds really good. Because, when you're in the Marvel machine, it's really hard to judge because there's so many things happening and so many people voicing their opinions and stuff. But I think that he really could pull something off like really, really solid too. So those 2 directors, now you convince me.
Roxy, what about you? Is Ryan Johnson your choice?
I mean, I actually think that the fans would just lose their crap, and I don't even want to hear it. So no, but I'm trying to think like what's his name? Like David Nutter from I think that's his name.
Game of Thrones.
Yes, Game of Thrones. Like somebody who's done something with massive world, because part of me wants to give opportunity to like like a Michelle McLaren or like somebody who I think is a great director, and let's see what the next level of what they can do is.
Yeah.
But this really, I do think, kind of requires a vet at the same time. Because it's so difficult. I think that whoever has the job, I think it should be him. I think we should stick with him. But the question was, if not him, then who?
Yeah.
Did you have an answer?
Yeah, I think I know there's actually a pretty beloved miniseries adaptation of the Dune books that Sci-Fi Channel did back in the day. So I kind of think Dune, after Dune Messiah, I think we jump ahead like a generation or two. And so it's not Paul, it's not Chani, it's not any of these characters. So like maybe go to a show for that one. But if we were doing a movie, I would choose M. Night Shyamalan, and I'm not going to explain further than that. He would be the choice for after Dune Messiah, M. Night Shyamalan.
Here's the twist.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Zendaya and Timothy end up happily forever.
Boom. There we go. Just get them in there. Come on. Let's give them another shot of big budget stuff. What could go wrong?
Yeah.
I ask you, what could go wrong? Last question.
Tough.
Last question from Mike Joyce. What was your favorite scene and least favorite scene?
Fudge. Least favorite scene? God damn, I don't know if there was one. Truthfully.
But, yeah, obviously when he says, "I'll love you to my last breath," and then turns around and says, "I will wed your daughter."
Yeah.
I threw my popcorn at the screen. Fuck you.
I mean, listen, man. If I saw that Florence Pugh was there, I was like, wait a second, hold on.
I thought the one scene that played a little wonky for me was when he does sip the piss and he's laying down and she comes over, and it, just
tears,
for some reason the tone or the pacing on this, and like it felt like Snow White or like Sleeping Beauty, I guess. It was just like, bro, is this a true love's kiss moment? Like what's the thing? That just like watching the people in the background, for some reason that was the only scene that played a little off to me. Like,
I think I agree with you, Roxy. That if I did pick least favorite, that might be it. Yeah.
But my favorite, that's a better question because there were so many really good ones. This is a scene that I've heard a lot of people say they really didn't like, and I loved when we go to, you guys know I'm bad with names, Black and White.
Yeah, the Harkonnen
Gady
planet.
Prime.
Yeah.
Say it again?
Gady Prime.
I call it the Harkonnen planet. It's a bad guy planet. Yeah, it's a bad guy planet.
What is it called? That didn't even sound remotely familiar.
Gady Prime. Geidi Prime.
Did they say that?
In the first movie they did, yeah.
And I think it
Okay,
comes up on the
holy
screen.
crap.
Yeah.
When we go to Katie Prime, I was like, what is he saying?
The Who?
I loved the switch into how that was shot.
Yeah, the infrared.
I thought that was so sick. Does it 1000% make sense to me? It was like totally clear on the rules and regulations. No, but when we see the dynamic between Austin Butler and his uncle, and it's like, and he's like, oh, he wants me to fight. I just thought the way they shot that was really sick. And on an island, that might be my favorite standalone.
Yeah.
Yeah, so going back to the scene that you were talking about, Roxy, I think for me the continuity felt weird to me in that scene. Like they go off on the sandworms, but then Chani shows up in an ornithopter, and I'm like, where did the ornithopter come from? Like that to me was a little murky. I was like, I must have missed something. There must have been some context clue here that I totally missed. So I think, and I think sometimes that tends to happen in a Villeneuve movie. Like you might miss some sort of like contextual piece, and I'm like, how did we get here again?
Yeah. And you get to see it 2 more times, and then you're like, oh, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, you did mention this. My bad. I just wasn't paying attention or whatever, or I must have just missed it because I was too mystified by the image on the screen. But yeah, I think the fight sequence in Gedi Prime is great. Honestly, all of the action, for the most part, all the action sequences are pretty amazing. And then Paul riding the worm, especially in that IMAX theater on that six-story screen, it's breathtaking to watch. So.
That was sick. That was sick, Adam.
That was so good.
I think, obviously, like you guys just said, there's a lot of standout sequences, but I think the one my brain always comes back to is, I don't know if it's the first time, but I think it's the main sequence where we see Paul and Chani and the rest of the Fremen taking down whatever that big bug machine is.
Basically the mining vehicle that mines all the spice.
Yeah, and
he uses himself as the human shield.
Yeah, where he has to run, and then he's going to get covered behind the other leg, but then the other leg starts to move, so he has to start running more. And it's like more of this stuff. I'm into this. This is a well-paced action scene.
Cool.
Yeah,
that was a good one, DJ. You guys both picked 6 scenes.
Six scenes. Boom. Boom. All right. That's the episode for today, everybody. Adam, remind the kids at home where they can check out your stuff.
You can just check out Heroes Reforged. We do a bunch of reactions for trailer shows and movies. We also have a separate channel for our podcast called The Chexicans. I just did a 9-hour live stream where I went through my entire physical media collection, including Dune, right here.
Boom.
The first one.
Did you eat?
Nope. I had 3 glasses of water, and I regret it. Yeah. And I stood the whole time. It was the dumbest thing.
Wow.
Wait, you stood for 9 hours?
Yeah. I truthfully thought that it was only going to last like 2 hours at most, but it was live, so I was engaging with the chat, and it took me too fucking long to go through all these. There's over 1,000 titles here, and I really was like, it'll be done in 2 hours. No. 9 hours later, I was like, I need to go to bed before my legs come off.
Please tell me the people paid you for this. Please tell me that they were generous. Yeah. That's a long time to hold in some urine.
Yep.
You might have given yourself a little blockage there. Come on.
Yeah, it was fun though. It was a good time. So that's why I tell people, I'm like, you got any questions about physical media? Ask away. I have like too much shit to talk about.
Yeah.
And then all my socials are just my name. So yeah, thanks so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Dude,
I'm glad I got to talk about this movie and have a little bit of an outlet to express my love for this franchise.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. As always, Roxy, where can the kids find your stuff?
You guys can find me everywhere at Roxy Stryer. And as of today, if you are watching this live, Always Lola dropped for free on Tubi. So if you did not pay to see it or you just liked it and want to watch it again, it is now free on Tubi. Apparently, this first week really matters. And it's very rare that I ask you guys to do something that's absolutely free. I'm always asking you to cough up the cash. So if you can go and stream it and and share it with people, that would be like just effing awesome. And then I can take money from the man instead of you.
There you go. Check it out on Tubi. I'll see if I don't know how Tubi works in this way, but I'll see if I can put a link in the description. But if not,
there's a link. I'll send it to you.
Then please do. Please send me that link and it'll be in the description. So check that out. You can find me at DJ Talks Trash. You can follow the show everywhere that matters at Only Stupid Answers, but on Twitter /X.
You ain't got the vowels from stupid.
And we will see you all next time.